Hello, everybody. Welcome to Beyond BMR. I'm your host, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. This show goes beyond cryptids and Bigfoot. We take you down a much deeper rabbit hole. We take on subjects beyond our very own realms and realities. We look at strange phenomena and the unexplained, such as time travel, alien and UFO existence, strange hauntings, and mysteries, as well as the paranormal. We focus on how all of these things do come full circle. Tonight, Barry Littleton joins us. It'll be a fantastic show alongside myself and Tex. Subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. Subscribe to Texas Front Porch on YouTube, TEX' on YouTube, The Front Porch, as well as our other platforms across YouTube. If you like our content, the Super Chat's open. You can find us on Odyssey Radio, iHeartRadio, also KPNL Radio out in Oregon. Thanks to the lovely Aunt Selene for that. Again, subscribe, Texas Front Porch, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, Wines and Booze Paranormal Podcast. And hello once again. I had a wrong button there. I felt like I made a text move. I hit the wrong button. I was looking for our schedule. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. As you know, the schedules are Mondays is Texas Front Porch at 7:30 in the East. Tuesdays, Van Buren Variety, 8 o'clock in the East. Beyond BMR, 9 in the East. Jason McLean does something called Mysterious Radio on Untold Radio, AM, 10 o'clock in the East. Those three shows, of course, on Tuesday. Tomorrow, Wednesday, Jason McLean questions everything, 9 o'clock in the East. Followed up by Thursdays at Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, 1 o'clock in the East. The Blondes, the Booze, the Paranormal Podcast, 9 in the East Thursday night. If you need more of the booze, well, we mix in a little woo, the Blondes, the Booze, and the Woo, Friday, 9 in the East. And don't forget our talented Jessica Jones. You can find her on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, Spaced Out Radio, 10 o'clock in the East. Don't forget to subscribe to the Cryptid Huntress as well. She does some other cool stuff during the day a lot of the times. I don't know what her schedule is, but go check out the listings. I'll bring up Tex.
Howdy.
Good evening, Tex. How are you, buddy?
Man, you know what? I'm good, brother. Coming off a very interesting day yesterday. Had a very, very interesting show. We last night, but we those shows that we have that where you talk to somebody and it's like we talk about all the time. We strive to give people, a platform to get their stuff out and talk about their stuff, even when nobody else really will. Because they're either too out there, or they're being judged, or they're being beat up. I knocked over my birthday present. See, I got see what somebody got me for my birthday.
Wow, that's very nice. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Well, no, it's tomorrow, brother.
Oh, good. I don't feel bad now. I have time to smell the card now.
Hell, I can't even remember what day it is. But anyway, very, very, very interesting show we had yesterday. I appreciate that old boy coming on. And then I jumped over and spent the night with Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio last night.
Yeah, you did. I caught part of that. Most of it, actually. I think...
Man, that went by quick. And we didn't even get to touch on a lot of stuff. That is crazy as long as that show is.
Yeah, it was one of your finer performances, I must say.
Well, thank you.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And it was a good one. It was really a good one. Some of the stories you told I hadn't heard before, and I thought I heard everything. So it was it was pretty cool.
Well, the thing about it is when I've got you listening, I don't have to worry about somebody not believing what I'm saying, because you believe everything.
I do believe everything. It gets me in trouble sometimes. I've been known to get in trouble. Well, not really. You know what I'm saying.
You know what? I'm going to mention this. Hey, that's right. Jessica, Dave is going to be in San Francisco, and our own lovely, you know, sister. Real, I mean, that's the way I look at it. Really, the cryptid huntress Jessica Jones is going to be taking over, and she's going to be taking the helm over there at
Yeah, I'm looking forward
Space
to
State
that one.
Radio while he's out of pocket.
Yeah.
But I was going to say I'm going to let a little peek of this out on this show because we haven't talked about it.
Yeah.
But it's still in the works. We're still
ironing some things out.
yeah, we're still in the planning stage. We're just working out the details. Honestly, we've already got stuff ready to go to make the content. Y'all are going to get a new show, and it is going to be totally different from anything we've ever done. It's going to be pre-recorded. It's going to be it will be released on the weekends because y'all don't have anything to watch. There's nothing going on the weekends, so I wanted to give y'all something to go do on the weekends. And we've got a new co-host, but I'm not going to tell you who it is. I'm not going to tell you who it is because I want them on with me when we introduce them. So y'all be watching for that because it's coming and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait. It should be awesome. And speaking of awesome, Tex, I'm going to bring Barry Littleton, our guest, and help. And there he
He's
is.
so much more than awesome.
Oh, he is. He definitely is. Barry, how's it going, my friend?
Well, good, my friends. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. You're welcome. I feel fantastic because all day I was kind of bored. I was kind of tired and sleepy. And then, right around 8:00 in the evening, I perked up. I said, yeah, I get to have Barry on tonight, talk about some weird stuff. And you're one of my favorites, man. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, glad to have you back. Glad to have you back.
The fact that anybody still listens to anything I have to say or ever has is somewhat amazing to me. So I appreciate it. And hello to your audience also. A lot of nice people. I've had people from what I had considered probably you and Jessica's crowd being the Bigfoot crowd, which is somewhat a trip because the Bigfoot crowd is brutal. But it's different. Your audience is something different. Very nice people that are accepting and really educated and aware. It's cool.
Yeah.
So
our crowd is they're a little bit unique. They like it all. They Bigfoot, Dogman, Paranormal, Strange, because it's how we try to blend the stations. Right 4 years ago was just all cryptids, right? But now we try to progress into everything. And we've had Jessica, she was with us for a while, then she's doing her thing. Now we got the booze and we open up all these different shows and because as I even mentioned how I start this show with Beyond BMR, how all things come together, cryptids, whether it's Bigfoot, Dogman, it don't matter, UFOs, aliens, time travel, different planes, different realms, it all to me, Barry, comes together at some point, and I think they're all related somehow, right? And I guess that's the way I can just start the show because the show is going to be kind of go where it may go. What's your thoughts on that, man?
Absolutely. Well, that's the thing is that these phenomenon are not the separate things and separate classifications that we as human want them to be. You know what I mean? So that's paramount. I had just come across something in the work that I did that really had me flabbergasted and just blown away. And it's interesting. That's why I'm honored to be here because all these things are starting to tie together. I just did a show. That was maybe a couple of weeks ago with the guys called Mr. Sasquatch, Michael Harrell, Pork and Beans, that show. Yeah. And something was said on there that was concerning Sasquatch at the level of like galactic level on board these craft and part of these different organizations that we hear so many contactees and people talking about in a way that almost the Chewbacca species is incorporated in Star Wars in that type of a way. And that's represented that. And, and I'm cool with that. I know that's what a lot of people say. Oh, it's a little woo-woo. They're just animals. But there's something else going on. When we deal with that DNA evidence through that hair that especially David Paulides has exposed with that robot, that crime robot out of Louisiana, how many convictions has that robot got? It takes that contamination out of there. And that nuclear DNA, mitochondrial DNA, the maternal, is human of so many ways they trace back, but that nuclear, that father side, is unknown in GenBank. So if it's not known in GenBank, I mean, that's something all else. That's going into the star species. And I don't think the ones we're hearing about. I don't see any of the ones that are dominating the media that conform to what Sasquatch seems to be able to do on the paranormal side. So anyway, again, I don't want to go too far away, but the work I'm doing, I had done once. I do past life regressions, and I also do earthbound spirit release. But there's different types of past life regressions, and one of them I'll do sometimes is called Life Between Lives. So I might learn from Edith Fiora. But anyway, normally there's a guide. If you do the technique correctly, without any suggestion, the person's guide or guardian angel automatically shows up. Really? And comes and starts communicating with them. And then it takes them to the place that I call it the place of translation and reconfiguration. Now I'm gonna start doing videos on this, all right? And this is a place where the guide, and it could look like a person of any type, but they'll identify who they are, they'll communicate, and then they take the person to this place of reconfiguration and show them, like, there could be ledgers there or books, and these are containing lives. They'll go over the past life they've just done and incorporate it into the soul, into the spirit, and then give them a choice of where to reincarnate and how to reincarnate. Each of the ones of these I've done, they had a choice. Sorry, I'll shut this down because I'm going too long. But the point you're good. The reason why I'm bringing this up to you guys is because the last one that I did, the client, when the guide comes, and this is somebody not into this part of this, it's a Sasquatch type being, but it's different. This is something large with a type of a uniform on, turns itself into a golden ball, then back in, and it shows and identifies who itself is. And this place of translation and reconfiguration is taking place on this craft. But it's not a UFO like any of us would assume of one. This is one that is actually monitoring different universes. And then this place of reconfiguration is a chamber, a crystalline chamber, that the client's soul is in, and going over not just the past lives and incorporating them all together. And then it gets, this can go to the universe of incarnation of his choosing. And that blew me away, because the guys on Pork and Beans were just talking about a different types of ship that the Sasquatch have been seen on, especially in Peru. But this just tied in so much. And this individual, this client, this is like a yoga person, okay? They're not into the Sasquatch, but they've had experiences out camping. They didn't know what it was, getting those rocks thrown, getting some howls, but they didn't know that that's what that was. But it's so interesting. So anyway, I don't want to go too far into that, but just that's why I have an appreciation for what you guys are doing and what everybody's doing for your audience and how this all ties in. And you're right, Rob, it's not the separate things that we want them to be all the time,
Let me add, Barry, kind of on that subject. The whole, because I went to Roswell, New Mexico one time, and I go through there. I used to go there quite a bit, because I used to vacation in Ruidoso, and they have the International UFO Museum and Symposium or something over there, and of course I'm not going to go to Roswell and not go to that. That's like not going to the UFO themed McDonald's that's there. But so they have this poster, and and it's weird because out of everything that they've got in there, that this is the thing that stuck out to me. And I don't know if it's because I'm a cryptid guy or whatever, but they've got this poster, and it has these images of all these alien species that everybody's reported to run into, right? And Bigfoot is on there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and you know how I feel about the whole Bigfoot thing. I lean more towards It's a physical creature and all this kinds. But I'm also open-minded enough to where when I experience what a lot of people experience, I'm going to be the first one to get over here and raise my hand and say, "You know what? Y'all were right." you know. But until I have that evidence, until I see that evidence for myself, I'm going to stay in my lane, right? So, but it occurs to me that if these things are like the DNA shows half, unknown, but what is it? It's unknown what?
That's the $5 million question, isn't it?
Yeah, that's 101.
Laboratory, and we talk about that when you start really looking at it from a scientific perspective. Right. Since now the one thing we can do is share people like Big Case Files, where everyone can share their experiences.
Right.
And although yes, this is a conglomeration. These fields and this subject brings in a lot of delusional people and liars. But once we actually, shuffle through some of that, you get a lot of encounters that people have only been hiding for generations.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something that's changing now. And in the way when you say that text, I totally respect that, because that takes it, especially like the type 2s that are the ones that, like, when Jessica remote viewed them and people would say this, they don't seem to have any paranormal abilities.
Right.
Not like the other ones. And when thinking historically and just culturally, you cats have been around a long time, all right? I'm sure you're much older than I. No, I'm just kidding. But if you remember, Carlos,
I'm pretty rapping on the vine there, Barry.
I'm just messing with you, man. But if you remember Carlos Castaneda and what he said about the Toltecs and the novels and what he produced from that culture and that training. So regardless of how much of what he was showing might be fictitious versus reality, isn't even the point until you really try some of the techniques he said that he had. And if you've tried them, like I have, I read that stuff in high school, man, so I tried it. Why do a lot of them produce paranormal effects if you really try them? So that's a whole nother thing. But when you start looking at what he called the novels and the abilities that they had that were strictly awareness and perception wise, and how to control the dream body. These are cats that dreamed awake all the time, different thing, could control that dream body. Just like during these encounters that we'll be talking about, we get bilocated a lot of the time. They have technologies and consciously pull our dream body, our energy out of ourselves, and have that on the ship and interacting with that, because it's a different frequency. It meets them halfway. And you're not on one of those crafts like I am about to throw up because of the dimensional difference.
Right.
Okay. I've seen people there that were phased out having encounters, and I was there physically, but I'm about to lose it, man. So that's something to kind of incorporate into this also, and how serious this is. But going back to Castaneda and the novels and how much they could control perception and cognitive abilities, is that something the Sasquatch has the ability of? And all of them might be, how long do they really live? How about the ones that aren't strictly animal-like? These other ones that seem to be more shaman-like. There's something else going on. We've got so many different types of them, we don't know. You know what I mean? Whatever it was that communicated with me when I was at that that ranch out there. I was at that ranch. Just kidding. Well, I was at that ranch. I've said it to you guys before, so I don't repeat myself and get crab apples thrown at me by your audience or anything. But whatever it was that actually was communicating with me, that telethought, I can't say mind speak, whatever you want to call it. I can't say, oh no, it's definitely Sasquatch.
Right.
But whatever it was doing a pretty good imitation. But whatever it was not some ape at a zoo, or just some North American undiscovered ape. It was not an ape. This thing was whatever it was, technology-wise, conscious-wise, it was a stronger telepath than I. Okay, it was overwhelming to a degree. And then when it shut off the channel, I couldn't do nothing about it.
Right.
So that leaves a lot, well, it's again, these aren't the separate classifications we might want them to be. So who knows, but it's good food for thought, and trying to understand it is the first premises of all this. So.
Yeah, it
Sorry,
is.
sorry to talk so much.
No, Barry, I love listening to you, and that's just great information. And another cool thing about like doing the night show is, yeah, the big ape or whatever people say. I mean, the people who use that theory, I don't really pay much mind to. But I
Buddy
had to
Joe
ask.
Young, Buddy Joe Young. Just kidding, just
Yeah,
kidding.
Mighty. Hey, I love that movie. Remember Mighty Joe? It was another sad movie. Sad movie. Almost worse than King Kong, even though that was terribly sad.
Son of Kong, that was terrible.
Son of Kong,
Yeah,
they're all.
yeah.
Why does the big monkey, always have to die, Barry? I have no idea, man. I like them to, the first half of those movies in the jungle is fascinating. Then they take them to New York and they kill them. That's just terrible. But anyway,
It's interesting, but keeping that on the track of what we're kind of talking
Yeah.
about. I just released a video where I was talking about how I thought that maybe from Indian text, Lord Hanuman, the monkey god, might be connected to Sasquatch. And there's another species that they see over there, Sasquatch type, called the Venara. But they all have these tails.
I've seen that.
Okay, and they've been seen worshiping around those very large footprints that Mohim, I can't think of his name. He talks about them all the time. But those they say that sometimes at night, these Venara have been seen around them. And I used to think that maybe they're like skunk apes or something similar to that, but they're not. And now we know with the DNA evidence, this nuclear side is not monkey genetics. So I was off on that one. So we got another species of primate there, kind of like these gorilla soldiers and things that are worth looking at. Very fascinating, or ape soldiers, whatever you call them.
I mean, that is well, no, I mean, yeah, it is fascinating.
All the signs of this place being a laboratory, is it not? Just the different types of Sasquatch you're seeing alone shows, and mountain giants and all this other crap, these cannibals coming out. It's just, this place has got every indication of being a laboratory. I will advise everybody to listen to last week's Earth Files podcast by Linda Moulton Howes on Earth Files. She talks to these guys. What was his name? Oh, it's like the first 6 minutes I posted on Facebook. 6 minutes of the interview to about 18 minutes. This individual is talking, government old man who's 92 before he died. He's talking to her and he says something. He says, people need to understand it's not just the grays and the reptilians, the tall whites. It's not even just hundreds. It's thousands of species interacting with this planet from throughout the galaxies. There's trillions of galaxies. Yes, thank you. Because the kind of contact I was having, we talked about this off the air, Rob, it didn't conform to what I was hearing on social media. Well, it was social media back then, in the media, nothing. And it gave me a great deal of distress. Not just did the beings and the experience not conform to mine, I wasn't seeing people that even looked like me. You know what I mean? Neither as extraterrestrials or contactees. So that was distressing. Just a lot of stress and stuff. I'm hoping this is the change we're going through now. People talking about this stuff more openly, and you're not considered just nuts because you've had paranormal experiences that so many people have, and not being just tossed back in the attic like people who had mental illness. You know what I mean? No, it's not. That's gone. Mental illness is on the forefront, and believe me, so do experiences and paranormal and gifts like that. It needs to be on the forefront for us to go into a type 1 civilization and really go forward and not destroy ourselves. I'll shut up now.
Barry, I want to ask you. I want to ask you a question, and it's a very personal question. So if you don't want to answer it, I get it.
Oh well.
I mean, you've pretty much had these paranormal experiences, for lack of a better term, throughout your entire life, to a certain extent. I mean, even as a youngster, you really didn't know what to do with it. And then, if I remember right, after your accident, it really amped up. But as a young, I hope people out there understand what I'm asking. As a young black man, with it's hard to talk about stuff, without that part being, added onto it, like you were saying. And I think that's where you were going with it. What was that? I mean, how hard was that, being a young fella when you were having these experiences, and then having that on top of it? Because that had to be hard, because because whether we want to admit it or not, I mean, everybody tiptoes around it, but there are cultural differences. If there wasn't, we wouldn't be different, right?
Be
It's like,
careful.
because there's certain, it seems
They'll
like there's
tell you what they tell me. Hey, this should be a part of the paranormal communities. Well, it is. Let's keep talking. It is. I'm glad you said
because,
that.
I mean, it even comes down to it's almost certain, when you're from certain states, the paranormal is accepted differently. And I find that strange because in Louisiana, it's just part of life, you know? And it seems to be more, I don't know, the paranormal, I guess Southerners are crazy because it seems to be more of an accepted thing earlier on in the Southern states than it was the Northern states. I don't know why, but it just seems that way. But when you were growing up like that, who was there anybody that you could reach out to talk to what was going on with you?
You know, I had a couple people. I had a brother that had some experiences. I mean, they were not like mine, not the way
Right.
I was having them, not to that degree, but he was somewhat having something happen to him. Especially, he was he's a musician. He's kind of the astral projection cat. He popped out of his body a lot. Something I couldn't do easy. You know what I mean? So that, and and I had a couple other people in my life. And one of the main things when you talk about culturally with that is when you look at the induction of religion, and especially a foreign religion, upon a certain cultural people, and it automatically becomes anything paranormal. Demons.
Right.
Yeah.
And that could come from, that even goes beyond race and cultural there. That's a religion thing.
Right.
And
I think you see a lot of that.
How much that makes people just shut up there. And
right.
I myself, when in the present, I mean, seriously, keep it at 100. When in the presence of a non-human, okay?
Right.
Some of them are emitting some type of a frequency that keeps you from freaking out completely, something within their biofield. But still, what if that's a deception? I ask telepathically, verbal if need be. What do you want? Who are you? Where are you from?
Right.
What if they're deceptors? Have to know. Sorry, people. I know people criticize me for that, but I've spent some of the beginnings of my encounters finding that out. I'm not going to, it's a wise old saying, only fools jump in where angels dare not tread. So I watch these experiences, and I spent a great deal of time going through screen memories to make sure I didn't have screen memories myself. I live in the Air Capital. There's a large Air Force base on the east side of town that I live in. See, it's odd. People don't realize that. But I wanted to see, like, my God, all this stuff happened to me. Did they get me? Did they wipe my mind? Am I having screen memories? All that stuff. And you hear the stuff happen to other people. I could say, no, I didn't think so. But you get down to Delta, there's ways to find out. Right. Anyway, sorry. I hope I answer your question. But culturally, that is a problem. It's the induction of religions, especially upon, the African-American community, that makes it not want to talk about it. Something that really interesting that Jimmy Church had brought out. When I was speaking one time, he jumped up there and said, my producer, he's African-American, but I'm sure he's had experiences. He's Black, but I'm sure he's a contactee. And I asked him, and he just will not talk about it. Yeah. So that's part of it right there. It's not common, and but that's period. That's an Earth thing, period. Sadly, most cultures, that if you're having contact, if you even see Sasquatch, you're going to get ridiculed. You're going to get called nuts, and that's just enough for people not to say anything and come forward. And for me, I was this guy. I talked big game. I was like, one day I'm going to come forward. I'm going to say what's happened to me, because it was so. It affected my mouth, my life so much that I was always going to come forward. But I'm going to tell you, fellas, look, that was just talk, all right? I wasn't probably really never going to do it, because it just ruined your career. It makes you almost a pariah. You know what I mean? But then I went and died and had this accident. I should not even survived. I shouldn't even be cognizant.
Right.
And then I had to compare these angelics I saw when I died, these super nanofem, compared to these very high vibrational beings I'd encountered on these craft, all producing this love energy, this God frequency thing that we can't see.
Yes, and that's where I kind of wanted to go from the beginning. First of all, thanks to Anella Amy and Sugar ×2 for the amazing super chats and super stickers. Thank you so much for that. We do appreciate it. And Barry, yeah, you're jumping ahead because fascinating. And for a lot of people that don't know, Barry, and the thing that I want to kind of talk about a little bit here is take me back in the beginning. Didn't this start, if I recall, you seen your first aliens? Yeah, and I say plural because from what I understand, it was more than one. As a young child growing up, like 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, and it was that, I saw some stuff started happening at 5, but it was more waking up in a room, and then at 7, everything really amped up at 7. That's when I saw my first UFO. I was with my mother, and that later on in life turned out that having a little bit of missing time there. You know what I mean? Then I had these other experiences that I call adult onset experiences, but I had childhood experiences that started like that, and they were very, very vivid. But some of them would seem like they were more dreamlike, and then so I didn't count those. I figured, well, I must have this great imagination, or maybe something's wrong with my brain or something. But then the physical ones happen, like waking up in a room where they have you do things with your mind, and the physical stuff where you can touch things tactile. It's a different deal, different animal, so to speak. So that happened at 7, really ramped up, but it came with also, being a medium and being able to sense dead people, earthbound spirits. But I didn't know that's what they fully were until I got attacked by one. And then what did that do? That made me want to, I was 7 years old when that happened. It made me, oh God, please take this from me. I don't want this gift. I don't want this. It's some curse. Like it's, you know what I mean? And it's like, you get these sorry, excuse my language. These sorry people who are just horrible people in life. I mean, molesters, murderers, whatever. And then they cross over, they die and they don't cross over, and it becomes something worse.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much for a disembodied person, earthbound spirit, to attack a 7-year-old kid. Ooh,
yeah.
Real good. That's.
I mean,
but
what
does discourage us from using our gifts and shuts us down. We're like a beacon to those people, those beings. That's what it does. It shut it down.
I can only imagine how horrifying it was as a 7-year-old, right? To be attacked by an earthbound spirit. Hey, I know as a kid, I saw the basic ghost on the wall, which I know was a ghost, which was scary. And my ghost, I always joke, looked like the Scooby-Doo ghost, but that's what it was. And that was nothing compared to being attacked as a young kid. I cannot fathom that. I really can't.
And I can tell you what it felt like. It felt like, especially like in high school, you ever have one of your bigger friends, a football cat, come up behind you playing some joke and they give you a bear hug from behind. Yeah. And it makes you, when you get constricted like that, you automatically, your lungs and everything inflate. And, I know now that I know more and I'm more aware, I know it was trying to join with me, but it wasn't able to. So the next thing was it invaded me telepathically. Get out, get out. And this came with this bear hug that happened a second. You know what I mean? And not long. I say look at it probably 2 seconds, 3 seconds, but that's enough. It's an assault. You know what I mean? Up to where I want to get out of there. And between that and telepathically picking up, get out of there, where my mother looking at me, are you all right? I was like, no, in the space. I just want to get out of here, And it.
Is that the same kind of thing we're seeing when people are having sleep paralysis? Is that kind of the same thing that's happening, an attack going on?
Yeah, you can have that. Happens in a couple of ways. One is sometimes the body starts dislodging and you're having that type of a effect there that can cause sleep paralysis. But then you've got these entities that do it too, that generate that. And they're typically in literature called, incubus. I'm sorry about that. Incubus and succubus. Yeah, right. And they're new, and they come with a sexual connotation to them also, right? And attack people in the dream state. For me, it reminds me of that movie. I'm a movie buff, but the old movie Cat's Eye. Well, Cat's Eye, one of the first ones, first movie Cat's Eye, Stephen King, that had Drew Barrymore was in it. She's like this ET age, Firestarter age, but that thing was coming out of the wall and getting up out her, sucking her breath. Remember? That's something that cats were known in legend. Cats used to jump up on babies and smell the milk on their breaths, and they thought that's what cats were doing too. Stealing their breaths. Wow. Anyway, sorry, I'm a go-to geek on you guys, but anyway.
Because that's how back in the day they would explain away SIDS, and because the cats did that. I can't say I'm not a cat person, but cats are not text people. Okay, I don't have a problem with cats. Cats have a problem with me, but now here. I want to ask you a question because I don't know. Okay, and I think you're closer to possibly knowing the answer to this than I do. When you have reoccurring dreams, and when I say reoccurring dreams, I don't mean just simple reoccurring dreams. I mean in-depth, detail, reoccurring dreams that they go further each time. You go further into the journey each time.
Oh yeah, I do that all the time.
And I've been having these specifically these two. I was having three, but I quit having the third one a few years ago for some reason. But and they're not bad. They're intense, but they're not bad. But is that something? Could that be something trying to walk us through something in life? Or is it? Are we actually going to another place and going on this journey?
First it implies that you're capable of sustaining dream attention to be able to remember that much of a dream and deal with it interactively. So that's a cognitively thing. That's a natural gift. They have those of us that are dreamers and those of us that are like gatherers, like me. To sustain dream attention, I have to make sure I'm doing enough things in the waking state that give me enough freed up energy so it turns into personal power and perception ability. So that way, when I get into the dream body and go over there, I'm more lucid than, like simple things like for me, the first gate of dreaming, which is looking at your hands, was very hard. It took me, I got to sit on the edge of my bed. I'm going to look at my hands, It took a long time, and then to figure out, then to look from there and then start shifting your awareness around. So if you're having a recurring dream like that, you've got an immense amount of dream attention, right? And the reason for the reoccurrences of it could be several things. One could be it's a past life memory that your consciousness is responding to stimuli wise, okay? And the other is it could also be contact of some type. Do you have somebody who's always there in this dream? Somebody who's always escorting you, or odd objects around? Those are things that can be contact a lot. That's why I tell people that especially the people that have that, especially before the era of drones, but people that see these UFO, you got 10 people around you and you see this UFO, maybe one other person, oh yeah, it's right there. It's obvious. Everybody else is going, where? And the fact that that is such a targeted contact experience. And Star Trek wise, you wouldn't think that you have a whole federation of beings that is stopping collectively what they're doing just to contact you. And that's exactly what's going on. And so much information is transferred on the superconscious level and the subconscious level during just the seconds you're seeing that it often manifests itself communication-wise in the dreamscape. You know what I mean? So you'll have a recurring dreams, or like 3 days later or 2 days later, what do you start having dreams about different beings? And it happens that, you don't put it up that, wow, that's somehow connected to this thing I was seeing. We don't think that way because, we don't have access to all our consciousness and all our cognitive abilities. It's a trip. And the more like me dealing with hypnosis, the more I see it. It's really a trip, and I don't know why we don't have full access to ourselves, but it's different when you've got somebody at total relaxation in theta, deep theta, almost delta, but the subconscious and the superconscious is on point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. These dreams, these two dreams that I have, they are they're Bigfoot research related, and I'm the guide. And
what do you mean you're the guy, Tex? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, there's a group, and I'm the one that's taking them out. I'm it's kind of my thing and my outing.
You're like the responsibility. You're the ringleader.
Right. And it happens in two different areas that I know very well, but that I've never researched. Okay, but I know these areas very well, and it's not like I'm in the past or anything. It's almost present time type thing. Okay, but it's like the journey goes further and further every time I have one of these dreams, and the encounters that we have are very, very intense encounters. Some would call them scary, but they're not scary. They're just very, very intense.
So, Tex, how many times have you seen them in the dream?
Oh yeah.
You know, this is actually delightful to me. You know why? Because you're going to be forced to have to deal with this. And the reason why you're bringing this up, because I'm starting getting bombarded over here. And it makes sometimes doing these interviews difficult if I start picking up things up. I'm picking stuff up, all right? And completely what you're going to have to acknowledge is this is the other side of Sasquatch that you don't accept. And these are the communications. You've been out looking for them a long time. You've thought about them. And believe me, I don't know what it is about them. The more you think about them, the more you try to observe them, the more they observe you. I've had somebody try to throw cards on them and they blocked it. So there's a whole other thing going on with them. So consciously, they're communicating with you. And what I would do if you have that much dream attention, start asking what they want, what they're trying to tell you. I mean, they're taking you to a certain location too that you know it's a power spot with portals and stuff that they can communicate with you from. So that's pretty cool. I think that to me is a communication if I've ever seen it. And the way they can do it the best is by manipulating the dreamscape to a certain degree. Come on, cats. You cats remember that movie. My favorite movie, man. Dreamscape with Dennis Quaid and Max von Sydow, man. Yeah, that was great. Remember how after a while he was doing that, he didn't need the machines anymore. And you were dealing with beings like that. What I said about them being possible novels and things like that, those were people of perception. Like Castaneda's teacher, Don Juan Genero and Don Juan Mattis. The stuff they were doing. Half the time they were showing up teaching him, and they were in their dream bodies. These cats were advanced dreamers, and he couldn't catch it. He said their eyes would be looking different, and then all of a sudden the one of them starts jumping around the waterfall. Something impossible for men to do or flying around. And Castaneda would always start defecating on himself and urinating on himself, and they'd be laughing at him. You know what I mean? So yeah, but you know, when dealing with Sasquatch, at least some types of them, is that the type of paranormal perception we're dealing with? And I think you're getting an answer to what you've already been asking. It's just different. It's real subtle. You know what I mean?
It's different for Tex, and you really just baked his noodle once again. Because we all know Tex and his thoughts on the quote unquote mind speak. It comes in more than one. It comes more than one way, Tex, as you're learning. But we're all here to learn. That's why we have the great Barry Littleton on.
Well, I mean, you've been in those areas, and you're dealing with these beings that can deal with observing every minuscule of their environment. But also, I'm convinced that they have access to the race memory and the soul memory, and they can see that, just like some regular like species. I don't know if it was this show, but I talked about those crows I used to feed when I was a kid and get in trouble for. When I go back to that area, those crows react to me so odd, and it's no way it's the same, but generational. I think they're carrying that race memory. You know what I mean? And I believe Sasquatch, just like some of these craft I've been on board, have access to not that race memory, but some of these craft access to our soul life memories. They know us. At least that's the craft I've been on. I can't talk for all of the contactees, all right?
I'll say this much: the two areas are very close together, and they're very close to where I had my dogman encounter.
Yes, yeah. Well, to me it makes some sense.
Hot area.
So,
you know, Tex. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I think that's, now what I would really be looking for now is to have another dream. Now that we've discussed this, now we've touched this energy, See if you have one, maybe not tonight, the next 2 nights, see if it
Oh,
comes
yeah.
again.
Yeah,
And
and
now,
I'll be
now you know what to do more. You see one, talk to it. You know what I
oh,
mean? Or think to it what you don't believe in.
I'm going to be texting him each and every night, Barry. Barry, I'm going to be texting him every morning. See, he works nights. He sleeps during the day. I know his schedule, so that's the first thing. Hey, what was your dream? What did you dream of
Daytime.
last night?
What a perfect time for them to
Yeah,
communicate with someone. You know,
you
it's
know,
a little different in the day because the
yeah,
sun is out and it makes telepathy a little more difficult. The solar radiation when the sun is out. You know,
yeah,
so if you want to try telepathy with another person, try it at night. It works much better.
yeah. Hey,
Hmm.
I do want to keep. I do want to talk about your UFO abductions and all that. But you know what? Since we're on this subject, and I love this subject of dreams, and I'll just bring up a couple. I always have. I don't have reoccurring dreams, Barry, but I have dreams. There's two things I want to ask you, and then we don't have to be spent all day on it. I do have
Sure.
dreams though that are part one. I have the same dreams from a kid, play all over and over again. It's always the same dream. Never changes. It's always the same. Don't have them every day. It's probably once, twice a month. And I also have dreams where they continue. It's like a story. It's like reading a book. It's like I'm on probably chapter 120 because this dream once a month I get a dream, but it's a follow up of the previous night's dream. They're not every day back to back. I might get two in a week, then I might not have another one for a month or two. Then it'll come back. But I always remember like the last quote unquote, for the lack of a better word, episode. But it's a running chronological like a book. And I'm on this story and the woods, yet there's a mall surrounding the woods, but I'm familiar with the surroundings and it feels like I'm trying to escape. But as the story unfolds in this dream, the woods is getting larger, this mall surrounding it is getting larger, and I'm running into people I know that I think I know that I don't know because their face is different. So it's kind of odd. I mean, that's I'm gonna leave it at that, but it's kind of perpetually is building up to something, but it's been going on for a couple of years now.
You know what I would say to that? Um, Consider the possibility that that is a past life manifesting itself that you're experiencing through the dreamscape. And when I say that, you know, you can kind of connect that with, I mentioned earlier, the different types of regressions. And another one of them is like called karmic connection. And it's where you actually, during the regression, it reveals who the people that are affecting your life now that you've known before and what your relationship with them were and other things too, like your abilities, your skills. But it's karmic connections. And what you just described was that to a certain degree, seeing people that you know, that you feel you know, with different faces, you know, and then also you're seeing an environment that's growing, as in your perception is growing and sharpening, and you're taking in more. And I think for you, probably a past life regression would be very beneficial. You might find it's very connected. And how do you know that's not a place that, you know, you haven't visited before or lived before? I would ask this: does it look modern or does it look old? This mall, this place.
Well, obviously the forest looks everyday forest, not whatever, but this mall is a combination of it reminds me of an actual mall in Vegas, but okay, you know how Las Vegas is all bright lights and glitz and glamour, but there's also a part of it that seems medieval times. It's
Have
really
you have
weird.
you noticed? Have you noticed every time we have Barry on and we're going to talk about Barry stuff, we end up talking about our stuff with Barry. It's like a therapy session for us
It
every time we
is,
have
but,
Barry.
you know, that's a great
That's
point,
okay. I
Zach.
don't mind that at all. I don't
What
mind
is
that at
up
all.
with that? Because we always soak up the time talking about our own crap with Barry
Oh
instead of
man,
Barry stuff.
but it kind of does
You know?
relate to what Barry is talking about, I guess.
Well, the problem is Barry's so damn easy to talk to, and he
Well,
brings up
thanks.
stuff when you're going, "Well, Barry, I'd really like to have your opinion on this." And then it's like you go lay on the couch and Barry sits next
I
to you,
really
taking
just
notes.
got to
You
invite
know,
Barry over at my house for Sunday dinner, you know, shadow night.
You know that one there. I mean, you just described that very, very well. I didn't mean to interrupt you guys, but when you said that, you know, you
Yeah.
described an older type of a mall. That describes a past life too. You know, and you're starting to see it and getting more understanding of it and the individuals that are involved with that possible life. And that's pretty good. You know, remember everything our subconscious has recorded over these lifetimes is not just erased. It's all there. and it manifests in different ways. And the dreamscape is excellent way. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I would say about that. You know what I mean? And it could be finding out now. It's about finding out how that actually ties to your life now. Because some reason or another, you're having this recurring and you're gaining dream attention, gaining awareness during the interaction with the environment itself. So that's important. So that means in hypnosis, you can take deep and you go right to whatever that you can actually see what that is directly. You don't even have to beat around the bush. You know what I mean? See how that connects and why you're experiencing it. These are things why I get so frustrated when people discourage like hypnosis, especially if you're someone that's had encounters. Like for me, the encounters wasn't that they were wiping my mind, but they happen on a vibration that is so different, faster for these beings, that even as much as they're able to meet us physically, when we get done, we're not in the presence of them and in the experience itself, away from the event horizon, it starts fading, getting blurry. You know what I mean? And just like kind of how a lot of us can't hold that dream attention, it's somewhat similar. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's what I'd advise. And next time that you're there, Rob, like the first gate of dreaming is looking at your hands. The second gate of dreaming is once you get done looking at your hands, you shift your awareness to your environment. Just look all around your environment and study it really good, like every detail. And think about it. That's what the Sasquatch do. Technically, you know what I mean? But seeing that, and then look for things that also you'll have others there, other beings that are generating energy and hiding behind phantasmagorical images. So look for things that are either the people that you're talking to, check them out very good, and also any odd objects, something that just sticks out too much. Check those out. Oftentimes those are what we can call allies and other inorganic beings that are in our field of awareness.
I will definitely do that, Barry. And Anella in chat says that Texter Rob can send you the bill after the show. And we are coming up on the 5-minute break. And speaking of Anella, thanks for the super chat. Thanks, Amy, to the super chat. Sugar ×2. Thank you. We got to take our 5-minute break. We'll be back with Barry. And as promised, we're going to get a little more into Barry's. What type of therapy can Tex and Rob provide for Barry with his alien abduction? We'll be back in 5 minutes.
4 minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. 2-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. One minute. 1 minute.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Barry Littleton joining us. Awesome show. Don't forget, Mondays, Texas Front Porch, 7:30 in the East. Tuesdays, Van Buren Variety, 8 o'clock in the East. Beyond BMR, 9 o'clock in the East. Mysterious Library on Untold Radio. It's something Jason McLean does. You can find that at 10 o'clock in the East. All three shows you can find on Tuesday nights. Wednesdays, back to Jason. Jason McLean questions everything, 9 o'clock in the East. Thursday afternoon, 1 o'clock, right back here with me, BMR, Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, 1 o'clock in the East. Later in the night, the Blondes, the Booze, Paranormal Podcast, 9 o'clock in the East. If you need more of the Blondes and Booze, they mix in a little woo, the Blondes, the Booze, and the Woo. Friday night, 9 in the East. Our great friend, the lovely, the talented Jessica Jones, go check her out, Spaced Out Radio, on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. That is at 10 o'clock in the East, and she also has the Cryptid Huntress channel. Check her out during the week. Go check out her schedule for her show times. Don't forget to subscribe to Texas Front Porch on YouTube. Bigfoot, Michigan Rob on YouTube as well. Bob Van Buren Variety, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. Hey, don't forget our great guest, Barry Littleton. His YouTube channel is simply Barry Littleton. Go check him out. He's got some fascinating stuff on his channel as well. I mean, I could do a show a week with Barry for a year and still not even put a dent into anything. Thank you for the super chats from Be Kind, Amy twice, Sugar Bridges twice, and Ella. So thank you so much for your kind generosity and support for our channels. With that being said, make sure everybody's ready backstage. Bring up the Bearded Wonder, my good buddy Tex, and Mr. Barry Littleton. Welcome back, Barry, and thank you once again.
I'll tell you what. I'm going to put this out there real quick, because I've got everybody guessing the initials of the new co-host that we're going to bring on, right?
Oh God!
And nobody's got it yet. And I tell you what, since more and more people are getting into it, what we're going to do is, here's what we're going to do. We're not going to do it during the show. Put your guess of the initials in the comments after the show, and the winner gets a free T-shirt. How's that?
I think that's fantastic. So, am I eligible?
No,
I need a new T-shirt.
I'll go down to Dollar General and get you a T-shirt.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, tell you what, Dollar General's got some good quality items. I'll tell you, I'll give it to them.
Well, you know what? Every time I go out camping or Bigfooting or whatever you want, however you want to look at it, that's my stop when I go get pogey bait. What or loosely we call groceries. That's where I go.
Excuse me. I tell you what, though, they're getting more and more products in there, like Carhartt and everything else. So, I mean, at least the one by me does, which is not bad. But anyway, let's get on with the show. And Barry, thank you once again. Send us the bill for our therapy session. You've really opened my eyes to my dreams. I had something else I was going to ask you. Maybe I'll do that after the show. We want to concentrate on Barry growing up as a kid and discovering that you were with aliens, man. I mean, what? Man,
well, hey, the way I look at it, I'm just going to say this: it's your show. You're picking up the bill for the therapy.
Oh well, yeah. Well, thanks for the super chats, everybody.
Go ahead. If you want to say something else, go ahead. It's on your mind. Go ahead and spit it out. Sorry.
No, but seriously, Barry, I do want to know a little. I think the audience would like to know a little bit more about, dig a little deeper, because even I mentioned Barry's channel, and he's got some cool drawings of aliens. And let me ask, let's start there, Barry. Some of this now, this is not your renditions, an artist I noticed on them. Is that some of the things that you experienced? I can't show the pictures to the audience, obviously, but kind of walk us through like some of the detail, I guess. And did you think did you know right away that you were with aliens or abducted or had them in your room or wherever they were?
All my artwork was done by Christine Dennett. She goes by Casara. She did probably, I don't know, around 40 sketches for me. And all those are on my YouTube channel. If you go to the playlist and go My Personal Encounters, you'll see a bunch of videos on there that show all the illustrations. For me, it was hold on. What was your full question again? I'm sorry, I said that.
Just basic. Your alien experiences growing up as a kid into adulthood. I mean, you've been abducted, perhaps. I guess you have, and I don't really know the full story. About. It doesn't have to be the lifelong thing. Just, we could do a 5-hour talk about it. I'm sure.
I've always preferred the term either contactee or experiencer because I was never really abducted. It wasn't that. You know what I mean? They always seemed more like interesting field trips to me.
Okay.
So that's and those are what I call the childhood experiences. And there were several of those that I had. And the main one when really it crossed over into my daily life. It seemed that way anyway. When you're there, and especially you feel like you've not slept all day the next day. You've gotten no sleep. But this is what I call the acid rain experience. And it's when I was in the 6th grade and I had woke up on board one of these craft and I was dealing with an individual that had come around me in my daily life a couple of times. But when I saw him on board this craft, they didn't seem to be another kid that was coming and talking to me telepathically. They looked like an insectoid. And when I say this, not a mantid. The mantids are very popular right now. They weren't before, but they are now. So this was an individual looked like that with the praying mantis looking being. This looked more like a grasshopper. Okay, and one of the few beings gave me a name, actually. But anyway, I saw this being on board this craft, and there's a screen there, and there's like other ships that I can see that are sucking up what look like smoke or something underneath them, clouds. And this being is telling me about this acid rain and how it's bad for our planet, and talking about microwaves and metals in the atmospheres and all sorts of stuff, and going fast forward about a week or so, I'm reading in 6th grade, I'm reading something called the Scholastic News. Our teacher would make us stand up and one person read it each Friday. And I got chose this week. And it was about the Statue of Liberty and how they had shut it down and they weren't letting people tour certain parts of it because they were repainting it and reconstructing parts of it due to damage from acid rain. And they explained what that was in this article. So that's when this went over from just not experiences to definitely daily life, no doubt about it. Because I didn't know what acid rain was. And I asked, thinking questions to this being, and it's answering my questions before I can even formulate them in my mind. So that is one part of the contact experience that is a little bit disconcerting, but it is what it is. Did that answer your question, or?
Yeah, I mean, I just can't picture being there. Actually, you know what I mean?
Sorry, my chair is.
Yeah, I just can't picture exactly that. Actually, of all the things I've experienced, I just can't put myself in those shoes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Like, give you an example. Another experience I had, and for me, these experiences went really hard until I was about 12, and then they kind of tapered off. I mean, I had some things happen, but it wasn't the same intensity from about 12 to 17.
Okay.
You think that had anything to do with?
And then that's when they started what I call adult onset experiences, and that's when actually somebody was with me a couple of these times it happened, and they're missing all this time. I had 5 encounters that involved all this, 4 actually that I was missing time that involved, like hours and hours, almost 20 hours of missing time. And then I had a near-death experience later on. These are things I called adult onset, though.
Okay.
But by then, it's like it ramped up, and that kept up till I was about right around 30, and then they tapered down the communications and the interactions changed to a different type, It didn't happen so much that I see spaceships to stop my world anymore. It changed.
Yeah.
Do you think that dip in there when you were between the ages of 12 and 17, do you think that had anything to do with you going through puberty and the changes of your body and the chemical processes in your body going through? Maybe
Could be, but I think more it was my mindset. I wanted to shut the stuff off, and I wanted to try to blend in, especially in high school. I wanted to try to be like everybody else.
Right.
Well, you sort of don't want anybody to know you're having encounters or anything like that. And honestly, the sad thing is that the 80s were not the most welcoming era for those of us who were intelligent brothers. That's something that changed. As our environment changes, it's like,
man, you ain't kidding.
In fact, thanks to that movie, Revenge of the Nerds, I don't care what culture you were, what race you were, it wasn't cool to be intelligent thanks to that sorry movie. You know what
I mean? In the couple of times that you've been on our show or on the shows, and the couple of times I've seen you on Jessica's and across the other platforms I've found you on, and there's 2 things. One thing that you told me, well, first of all, is it always, Barry, in your opinion, that when there's missing time, that it might be something extraterrestrial? I'm not saying 100% of the time,
or interdimensional, or whatever some of these beings are.
Yeah,
there's a good chance of it, because what you've got is you've got not just technology, but you've got beings consciously that can somewhat change and manipulate the space-time continuum, and also project virtual reality dreams and scenarios at us that we can't tell from reality. And a lot of times that deals with, so you're dealing with beings that mess with the space-time continuum, all bets are off. And for me, it was, I went through decades being against hypnosis. I learned about it, but I was against this because I'm Mr. Conscious Experiencer, because I was conscious on these experiences. But then the further you get away from the event horizon, the more it fades, and you start tripping like, what exactly? You know what I mean? So to what I could actually remember of these experiences, which was several things, but the truth is, I come back from having like just one of these, having 4.5 hours of missing time, 4 times, almost 5. You know what I mean? What I remembered was a splinter of what I should have known and been aware of. So that led me finally to go and get regressed. I could not. I came to hypnotize myself, and I wasn't very good at hypnotizing myself. I do other people just like that, but me, I could get myself, and I strictly did it so I could learn to try to get these missing time. But I had to go actually, sit down, and have somebody else do me, and go really deep, and find out what I saw was more. And then I was blown away by the amount of information. And that, to where that, wasn't negative, but it's just so much. And volume-wise, it really blows you away. But these are things that happen to so many people, and that's really the level that a lot of these experiences are happening now. And it's a shame because right now, through the media, we're so inundated with negative encounters, SSP, grays, reptilians, that if you have beings of like a higher vibration trying to connect with us through the divine field, we are strong enough projection wise and creation wise and with intent of will that we can change the nature of the contact. We're so saturated with negative encounters and SSP that what is happening, you turn that into something completely negative. You're that strong. And people need to be aware that some of these narratives that we're getting induced and introduced compared to what evidence like what CCRI and Ray Hernandez in their survey found out are very, very conflicting. People need to be aware of that. I represent a lot of people. I'm by no means special. I always had the theory that between 70 and 80% of our population had contact, and most were unaware of it. And since coming to the platform I'm on now, I've found nothing to discount that and disprove that. A lot of people have had contact and are just unaware of it. So in that way, I'm not special. I'm unique, but so is everybody that has these experiences because we're all different. And most of the beings we're interacting with are not the same. They're not the ones we're hearing about. It's not the people from Lyra. It's not the Pleiadians. It's cats from other different galaxies, extragalactic. And I want to answer something. Somebody over here, I caught a question. I don't know who it was, so I apologize. It just caught my eye. And they were asking about, do I know of any other beings that are coming in now that weren't able to before? That, again, is another narrative that's been given by a whistleblower who is somewhat of question status right now. And I know that individual. I've done a video with him. It's on my channel. Okay? Yeah. Got issues with what they're going through, but I won't even address that. All right? But anyway, just point being, that's a narrative kind of given by them. But when you look at truly what we're dealing with galactic-wise, and what Hubble and the new James Webb telescope has discovered, they're saying now there are trillions and trillions of galaxies. So we're dealing with so many that are coming here on the conscious level through quantum entanglement that is unreal. Okay, so more than what we're being told. And a lot of the contact phenomenon is not what it appears to be. Just the beings I've dealt with. I just did this show with Jessica, and I give her these blind targets. She's really cool, and I give her these blind targets. And this was a big one. It's the name. Guys, it took me 36 years to finally get a name from these beings and whatever they are. And the name I was given was first thing I thought, oh no, it's worse than the stuff I've been hearing. These names like the Ashtar Command and the Galactic Federation. Oh, man. And they give me this name, the Extragalactic Interdimensional Cooperative Alliance. I get that, and it comes to, telepathically. And I'm 36 years old. I get this name finally. And all I can say is, are you kidding me? I can't tell people that. I'm gonna get laughed out of, man. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. They're telling me, it comes through very clear, no joke, and to focus on the cooperative word and how they go from macro to micro. Yeah. And then how I start seeing civilizations that are going so far. They're not just nano, they're pico, and we start dealing with civilizations type 5 that are pico, and they've gone into the small things. They have something like a Dyson sphere over their solar system, over the star and over the planets in it. They're going to start actually engineering feat like that. They start exploring space through inner space, like Martin Short and Dennis Quaid again, right? Anyway, think about it, though. That's really intense. And a lot of the contact that we're having can come from civilizations that are of that type, that are dealing through these wormholes, these makos. They're dealing with us on the conscious level. But what they're also doing, just to have the ability to bilocate us from our physical body and our dream body, our energy body. You could be having an experience in the dreamscape, a dream with these beings. You're on board that craft, and they may be microscopic, but you wouldn't know that because your dream body doesn't conform to the physical parameters of this body, and they can shrink it, and you're in there having an experience. It's about perception and awareness. Anyway, sorry, that's probably not what you even asked me.
No, that's fine. Go ahead, Tex. I love it, Gary. I love it.
Where does all this tie in with as far as like Christianity goes? Where do these beings talk about there being a single creator, or because I know there's a lot of people out there that well, they consider aliens demons of some sort, and
Some of them
um,
might be.
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you never know. I don't know. I mean, that's just
Got
I
some
don't
negative
know.
factions out there.
Um,
The one, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just wondering if they've ever communicated that type of thing, that there is a single creator that created all of them, where all this life came from.
The creator, they definitely given the label that there's a creator, and not just that, they've used a term that at first I couldn't accept it at first till they really tuned into me and give me whatever people call download, whatever you want to call it. But all these beings I've dealt with, whether they're extraterrestrial, interdimensional, angelic, they've all talked about the Christ consciousness and the
Wow.
Christ energy. I've heard it from all of them. And at first, first time I heard that, I'm in the presence of non-humans. I'm like, oh man, because the thing I start thinking, I have no religion. Okay, I'm not a religious guy. Not now, not then. Didn't grow up that way.
Right.
And I start thinking, oh boy, not the church thing. And immediately they're beaming in. This is beyond any person or any social institution. This is a frequency of the prime creator that a love frequency that you can access. And I got the impression that there's a level of God creator consciousness higher than that. I don't know what it is, but anyway, and that's what they went. So I had to accept that. Okay. And then on top of that, look, all my experiences I've had, very blessed. None of them have had a sexual connotation to it.
Right.
None of them have had, one time I was somewhat, not, I would call it experimented, but I mean, I was like on a bed and these guys had these rods around me, but they were not hurting me. They said they were awakening the light quanta of some of my DNA. So interesting.
Wow.
But anyway, so that
Gary,
I'm like,
excuse me, they said that to you?
yes,
Yeah, telepathically? Yeah.
Yes, and that video on my YouTube channel is called the BioBed Experience.
I gotta check that out.
Underneath the playlist, under my personal experience, check out the BioBed. I had Christine do illustrations of that experience, and she's really good in terms of what I saw. It's very specific, and I wanted to look that way, and she's very good at representing it. You know what I mean? And it's one of the few times I got names from some of the beings that were there. There's a couple, but there are several different beings in that room, and I even show the devices that they have that got it illustrated. So anyway, check that out.
Obviously, you have the illustration of that, and I got to ask you though before I go check that out, because I've seen something similar. I think it might have been that one, but laying there, I mean, that's got to be weird. And you're awake and you see these things. I mean, what's going through your mind? I mean, did you see was there a lot of them, 4 or 5 of them? Did they have the instruments in their hands? Apparently they did. Were you like in a silver room? Were you
four of these little blue beings? And that's about as close to anything that looks like a gray that I've seen. And they weren't grays, okay, but they just had that humanoid type of face. All right, little blue cats with these really cool blue suits on that have these racing stripe looking like lighter blue, almost white racing stripes on them. All right, and somehow they were connected to these crystals that they had, and also connected to the walls too. It's a whole symbiotic thing going on there. And there were others, and these cats were telling me that I'm getting Andromeda like council members, and they're showing me like when I see that as a structure, Andromeda, there's like one of the arms on the spiral towards the bottom that they're from that area. Okay,
well,
and then
I for one, I'm just glad you didn't tell us that they were NASCAR drivers. So I'm happy with that. So,
nothing like that. No,
the guy like last night would have said that.
It makes me wonder where some of those uniforms come from. Theoretically, who thinks them up?
Well, if you look back, if you look back in the 50s at all the science fiction movies from the 50s, you see a lot of those silvers with the stripes and the starburst on them and everything. It kind of makes you wonder where they got that from, because I have to wonder if some of these directors, some of these writers weren't, contactees.
Mm-hmm. Well, Gene
But they never
Roddenberry,
talked about it
he'd be a big one.
because in that era,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gene Roddenberry would be a huge one. But sadly, some of the uniforms they had on there, like Star Trek Next Generation, those tight uniforms, man, there's no way you'd be doing engineering work crawling around on a Jeffrey tube with those things on. There's no way. But
no.
But anyway, but during that experience itself, the biobed experience, there are also two other beings there. One named Mana that I've seen on other craft and other experiences, and another one didn't have a name for it, but it's a shorter brown being with almost a pear-shaped head. So that was, something that was one of those experiences that was something where I actually got an area of space that was referred to at least, and things like that. So, but like I said, there's so much we're dealing with there, and that's just one galaxy. We've got all these others, like the Triangulum Galaxy that has brothers that came here, melanin dominant beings that were here that were 25 feet tall. And you see that represented a lot in some times in even Egyptian hieroglyphs, but people don't talk about.
Was that where we're getting the mountain giants from?
Tex, I think I've got theories about them. I think when looking at this like truly genetic laboratory, I think those mountain giants is a prime experience of the example of that. You've got the 4-toed ones and the 3-toed ones, right? You've got the ones with the tusk. I mean, what is that? Most all of them are reported to be cannibals for whatever reason. Yeah. And the reasons that they're not seen nearly like as much as Sasquatch or any of these other cryptids, a lot of them, I find that fascinating. And I always pick up so much an inner earth connection with them and where they're coming out of the inner earth, And
I want to talk about this just for you mentioned cannibalism. Cannibalism is eating your own species. If they're a different species, they're not technically cannibalized. If they're a different species from us, that just hit me. But we refer to them as cannibals because they are humanoid, and they're supposed to be eating us. So we automatically assume that's cannibalism. But technically, if they are a different species, that's not cannibalism.
I'll tell you what.
What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that are this. Looking at Pauletti's DNA evidence, there's enough mitochondrial human DNA. You should be grubbing on no people, man. It's just that simple. They should not be getting their grub on humans, period. That's the way I look at that. You know what I mean? That's no more than they should be molesting horses, in my personal opinion. I'll tell you, when I first brought that up, the witch knot thing, I can't tell you the amount of tomatoes. It's called about rotten tomatoes. I had tomatoes thrown at me. People in the Bigfoot community, they would never do that. That's not me. I'm telling you what the people are reporting. Ranchers, not me. I don't even ride horses. I have no horses. The witch knots, though. People got.
And we've heard that before. We've heard that before with them. Having their way with horses. And I don't know if it's just because of the size thing, and maybe.
I've always heard it was the frustration that the juveniles are not acknowledge their sexual deal within the clan by the alpha, and they go take it out on the horses. That's what I had heard with it quite a bit.
Well, I've heard that too. Yeah.
And I mean, and that was 4 or 5 years ago. I brought that up, and I'll tell you, I got it butchered, man.
Well, and it's like
Forest Brothers wouldn't do that.
Well, it's like Jessica and Amy brought up. They're called witch knots that you hear about a lot, and there's a big difference between what we used to call witch knots and what other people are that are actually seeing. Their manes and tails are actually braided. Witch knots are, they'll roll around on their back in the dirt and everything like that. The wind to get a hold of them, and it's not specifically braided. It's just tangled.
And when they're like clean each other, I've got a client that is a rancher, And they've described a lot of that to me, the different braids they have, but they have, guess
Right.
what? Sasquatch activity on their property, a lot of it.
Yeah.
And
When you got intricate braids going, there you got something going
well,
on.
I mean, these look like there's almost Jamaican style. They were
Yeah.
very intricate. Yeah, because they sent me some pictures. I was like, whoa, you know what I mean? So it brings another thing to it, you know. And then you also have as they described, how those horses were acting, especially when out in the pasture. They were very skittish.
Well,
and they changed.
Several years ago, the Bigfoot Outlaws actually addressed that too. So,
oh yeah, I like to hear about that. Yeah,
they addressed it, and one of them, I can't remember if it was Bear or Kumbo, actually had it happening on their property, and their horses were acting very, very skittish. They didn't want anybody to touch them and anything, but they were having these witch braids happen, and I say witch braids, but again, what we used to call witch braids was just tangled hair, you know, but I never witnessed anything that was intricate enough to make me go, who's been messing with my horse?
Yeah.
You know, and my horse has never acted like that. So I don't think we had that kind of activity. Now I've had it's weird when you start when you start discussing oddball things like this, that it triggers stuff that in the past, because I can remember, you know, because this is I'm talking about the same place I had my dogman encounter. I can remember our horses not wanting to come out of the stalls, you know, and you had to push them to get them out in the pasture. Well, normally, you know, ours wasn't what they call barn broke. They didn't cut for the barn every time you took a halter off of them, but they wanted to go out in the pasture, you know. And I can remember having to lead them, you know, almost force them out into the pasture because they did not want to go, you know. And I just, that may be because the dog man was in the area the night before or something like that. I don't know. It's just a shot in the dark. But I've heard about a lot of encounters about the whole witch braiding and stuff. And yeah, if they're intricate braids, like you see Brandy wearing on the show, you got some kind of activity. So y'all hit Brandy up and ask her, you know, what Sasquatch is braiding her hair for.
Yeah, right. Hey, Barry, really quick, I put up this question. It looks like it's one of our newer people in chat. Chekhov call once, I guess it's referring back to the Giants. Do you think there's a bloodline connection?
I like that name. Is that their real name? Like nuclear
It's the first time I've seen it in the chat, so thanks for joining us.
Star Trek, nuclear vessels. Anyway, no. You know, that's actually a good question. You know, right now, everyone, at least the UFO community and Ancient Aliens did a big thing about it. Negative blood, negative blood, and how much that is connected, that's introduced into our blood pool, and it's of extraterrestrial genetics and things of that nature. So, you know, I can say through my experiences that the beings are definitely interested in our soul life memories, meaning that we are immortal souls, and whatever reason we incarnate here, devoid of those soul life memories, even how many times you might have incarnated here. Okay, so they're also interested in making us aware of our soul life memories, because some of this goes back to their places, dimensions, planets, universes, whatever. And we're supposed to remember some of these things, all right? And then you've got the other factor, which is what bloodlines have been bred here by which extraterrestrials. You've got a bunch of them here, more than what Linda Moulton Howe's talking about, more than just the tall whites doing this. Come on, you know. So that's another issue right there. So bloodlines, yes, you know.
We've talked about so many different things. God, Barry, you know, it's really an hour and a half. Listen, I got to ask you, because we talk about so many different things, and going back to one of our original subjects, I think this is really, you know, I think this is an important question though, because you had said 70 or 80% of us humans living on the planet Earth probably don't even know we've been abducted or a contactee or had some form of event, right? So how does one know? I mean, outside of now going through this, you talked about again the regression, which again I think that's a legitimate way to go.
It's a
But
big
is there
one.
any other for the average person who's listening to the show tomorrow and they happen to be listening and they think they got something going on? What else can you look for? What are there any checks and balances, or
Checks
some people,
bounces.
you know what I'm saying? Some people know and some people don't. You know what I'm saying?
One thing is, like I mentioned before, if you've seen a UFO,
Yeah.
and it's a little different now because we're in the age of drones, but not everything
Yeah.
we're seeing is man-made by any stretch. So if you see one of those people, you've seen one, other people couldn't see it, even if it's just for, a few seconds, pay attention to that and maybe think about getting a regression for that. What did your subconscious get communicated during that time? Two, if you had dreams about beings that are not human, okay? Regardless if you've seen a UFO or not, that's another way. Another thing is, are you seeing things when you watch something like science fiction, or you see something like Whitley Strieber's the front of his book with that weird being on there? Are these things like that triggering memories, or is it you have this sense of familiarity? Are you like I was as a kid? Man, the only way I could find any solace was like on Star Trek and Doctor Who, because I'd seen stuff similar, but even that wasn't what I was going through because it didn't have the organic component. These ships had an organic component I was dealing with, and these beings. So it's a little different, but at least it gives you a frame of reference. So these things can cause trigger memories. Did you hear some weirdo like me talking, or you see pictures like I presented? Did it trigger something? Just this familiarity. Pay attention to that. It's the subtle things in the contact phenomenon, whether it be with angelics, light beings, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals. It's the subtleties that we sometimes miss. I mean, so much of our energy and perception is given just to go paying our bills, going to work, going to schools, taking care of the kids, family members, excuse me. So much of our energy is consumed with that and maintaining that there's very little free energy for the other side of perception, like the left side of awareness. There's very little of that where the death process exists, where the superconscious exists, the subconscious. We don't have a lot of the dream attention. These are things we need freed up energy for to perceive to a degree. You know what I mean? So these are things there. Don't be, if you're having things that trigger something, don't be afraid to go look at it hypnotically. It's important because it'll give you a chance to relax and access those. And what have you been in? How many times have you lived on Earth? How much trauma are you carrying within your within your field, within your energy, your body now? Generational trauma and past life trauma stores in our body from the soul level. There's a chart that even shows what organs store what trauma. That's very real. And I found that not just earthbound spirits, but demonic attachments happen on those traumatized organs. That's where they lock in at. These are things we need to be aware of. Some strategies they use to get to those of us who know how to shield ourselves. How do they get to us still? You know what? They create these cracks in our shield and go for the heart chakra, normally to somebody you know. But if you know somebody like some of the people in this group know how to shield them people, they'll do things. Financial problems, okay? Cars messing up. Something going wrong with the mortgage. You got this fool petty tyrant at work messing with you. You got a family member going off, losing it. And you've got these little things that are stressing your shields. Mm-hmm. If I want to be the idiot there, the geek that talks about Star Trek, sorry, not a geek. You've got like the Enterprise here, and you've got these Romulan birds or Klingons. There are like 4 or 5 of them. They're all firing down on it, trying to collapse those shields. But those of us who know how to shield ourselves and re-shield ourselves, it does just enough to create these little cracks. And then immediately what they do is they come in through your biofield and go for the heart chakra immediately. Somebody attacks you or something bad that hurts your heart. That's what they do. That's demonic strategy right there. Real. And they don't care. They laugh. These people they use that run around and on the internet, the groups, these trolls, those demonic forces don't care.
Mm-hmm.
You remember Rocky V when he told Tommy Morrison before they went in the alley, "You going for the deception here, Tommy. He don't care about you. He don't care about me neither."
You know what? But that's true.
Yeah.
You know, they just get their jollies on our misery.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Miseries, fear, what have you.
Yeah.
Anything. They prey on that. They prey on that, right? They do. And if
Yeah.
you fall subject to it, you yourself could fall into the dark side, as they would say.
Even something like earthbound spirits, and one I think that's a good example, Rob, is you're talking about the people in your bar. To me,
Yeah.
those didn't seem that I wouldn't call it, they sounded like earthbound ghosts to me that were still enjoying getting their party on. That, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And but that there is enough. Like when you get an earthbound like that attached to somebody, okay, how they express themselves through the victim or client is through negative behavior patterns. It's normally the ones that kept them here. So one of those people you saw in there trying to drink down that booze, they're going to jump with somebody else. And even if that person that they jumped in doesn't have a genetic disposition to be an alcoholic, you hope not, they're going to turn into one. If they have a genetic disposition, it will really be exacerbated. Hard, quick. Anyway, sorry, that's probably not what we're supposed to be talking about.
Well,
sorry.
no, that's pretty cool. I like that. I never looked at it that way. I just thought it was just something, the morph that was there from way back from Prohibition, and it's kind of, but that's interesting.
Probably a little both. It could be phantom images, and phantom that they're still doing the same thing. But you had said that that you saw evidence of them being there on the bottles and things or whatever.
Right.
That's a little more tangible there.
Yeah,
and that's a whole lot of will. That's somebody wanting, like, man,
that's a lot.
Party.
That's a whole lot of that's a whole lot of energy.
Right? One of the ones I crossed over recently, it was a young person. There's a couple of them actually in this one person, and they're telling me, died in like an accident. Said they were raised, I think it was very strict Catholic. That's the term that's the religion they use. And they said that their parents were so strict that they couldn't do anything. But then they die in this accident, and they encounter the client when they're a teenager about to go to college, and getting them to develop like a party problem, a drug problem. So they can go to the parties. I could never do that. They're going to college. I didn't get to do that. So they're joining with this person and living through them, and in return is turning the person into this hardcore partier when they were not before. You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting how that works. The things that hold us back from crossing over are reasons we don't go into the light, even if it's listening to one of these fools in these circles telling people not to go into the light based on crap they can't really explain to you, something they heard from somebody else, not based on experience, not based on mediumship, not based on dealing with a caseload of earthbound spirits inside or outside the energy field, period. They're just talking. And they have a big enough of a platform, people are listening to that, and then they die, they're thinking about what this people thought, what this person said. Yeah. And maybe I shouldn't go into that light when it's there. And then they get trapped. And you wind up dealing with somebody like me. It's dark here. It's dark here. And you're trying to join with other people.
Yeah.
Just food for thought,
Barry, you just read my mind, man. We must have did some telepathy, because I would say, as Barry Littleton says, food for thought. Because on that note, we're going to have to cut it. It's been over our time. And Barry, man, again, going to have you back. It seems like an hour and 40 minutes went by in 5 minutes. But again, I do appreciate the therapy session for me and Tex.
I apologize for the people I didn't get in the chat. I only looked a couple of times, so if I missed people,
I didn't get a chance. I didn't get a chance myself. It was just so fast. Every time you come on, I hang on to every word, and I learn something every time you come on. I know Tex does. I know the people that follow you do as well. So a great shout out to everybody joining. Thanks for everybody in chat for joining. Special thanks, Be Kind, Anella, 2 times for Sugar, 2 times for Amy, for your great super chats or super thickers. We do appreciate that. And don't forget, we're on 5 days a week. Barry Littleton, where we can find you at again, buddy?
You can find me on YouTube. Got a lot of stuff on there under Barry Littleton. Also, I'm on Patreon under Barry Littleton. And I've got a website, barrylittleton.com. I don't get on there much, but the links are there. I'm also on Facebook under Barry Littleton. I try to communicate a little bit on there.
And if you and well, and if you get on the right wavelength, then you can reach him in other ways too.
You can. That's Texas soon going to discover.
I can't, but
you're having something going on with Mr. Sasquatch out there, Mr. Dreamer. So
I would take that very seriously. I think you're getting a lot of your answers right there, my friend.
Yeah,
stuff you've been looking for a long time.
Yeah, I think. What's the word?
Man,
verbiage.
You and why are you and Jessica gonna give me all this deep stuff? I got to think about.
Jessica flipped him out with his abduction, and now Barry is suggesting that he is a communicator, which he's totally staunch against. With that being said,
that's great.
Tex, you're soon going to be 0 for 2, I think. I'm thinking. I don't know. Find out next week when I give the lowdown on Texas Dreams on Brunch with Bigfoot Rob, maybe. No, he'll be working. He'll be sleeping, actually. But once again, you guys, on a serious note, thanks to Barry. Thanks to everybody. For all you new people out there, subscribe to Texas Front Porch on YouTube, Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube, Blahs and Booze Paranormal Podcast, Barry Littleton on YouTube. And again, thanks to the great super chats and for your time spent with us here this evening. Until next time, for Barry and for Tex, it's BMR, and I'm out.